Welcome to My Irish Radio, music and culture news, your connection to everything happening in the world of Irish music and culture. I'm Jamie Flanagan. Each episode will share the latest news from Ireland's vibrant music scene, from traditional and folk to rebel ballads, pub tunes, Celtic rock, and today's top Irish pop. We'll also bring you updates on festivals, cultural events, and people keeping Irish heritage alive around the world. And remember, My Irish Radio is more than just a station. It's your community, your soundtrack, your voice. You can listen 24/7 at myirishradio.com and through the links in the podcast description below. Here's the best part. You can be part of it. Host your very own show on My Irish Radio. Choose your playlist, share your stories, make My Irish Radio your Irish Radio. Let's get into what's happening this week in Irish music and culture.
Imagine staring at a 1.6 million euro check.
Oh, wow.
Right. And this money is specifically meant to share your local culture with the rest of the world.
Okay.
But then you look down the street and the grassroots music festival in your own neighborhood is just, well, gone entirely bankrupt.
Yeah, it's a harsh reality.
It really is. What happens when a culture is simultaneously, heavily funded, rapidly disappearing, and in some cases, literally being dug out of the dirt?
Literally.
Welcome to the deep dive. Our mission today is to explore this single, really dense source we have. It's a comprehensive dispatch from the Echoes of Air Music and Heritage Review for the week of April 20th, 2026.
And it is packed.
Oh, totally packed. We've parsed the articles, the concert announcements, the archaeological reports, and the funding data. Basically, we are piecing together a snapshot of a culture in absolute transition.
Yeah, the contrast in the news this week is truly staggering. I mean, we are looking at an environment trying to balance profound historical losses with massive new investments, alongside, frankly, completely surprising discoveries about its own past.
Yeah.
So to understand where things are heading for you as a listener, we really need to examine what is being lost, what is being heavily protected, and what is just now seeing the light of day.
Okay, let's unpack this. We have to begin with the heaviest, most foundational news from the dispatch, because it really establishes the stakes of cultural preservation.
Definitely.
This week, the Irish music world is mourning the passing of Moya Brennan.
Such a huge loss.
Massive. She was the legendary singer of Clannad, widely celebrated and known globally as the Grammy-winning Queen of Celtic music.
A truly monumental figure. I mean, her voice wasn't just a sound.
Right.
For millions around the world, it operated as the sonic representation of Ireland itself. It was like an auditory anchor.
And we are pairing that immense human loss with a massive physical one from the same week.
Mm-hmm.
Down in Cork, St Augustine's church is permanently closing its doors.
Yeah.
This severs an 800-year association between a religious order and the city.
800 years.
800 years. That means this specific church survived the Black Death, the Reformation, and the famine.
Wow.
But it couldn't survive modern pressures.
Yeah.
That really puts the loss into perspective. I look at losing Moya Brennan and an 800-year-old physical space in the exact same week, and it feels like a landscape suddenly losing its oldest, deepest-rooted trees.
That's a great way to put it.
So I have to ask you, how do these sudden absences of living legends and ancient physical spaces alter a nation's cultural memory?
What's fascinating here is that culture isn't just an abstract idea, floating in the ether.
Right.
It is quite literally housed in unique voices and enduring stone.
Stone and bread.
Exactly. When a voice like Moya Brennan's falls silent, or when the heavy wooden doors of a church that has anchored a community since the Middle Ages are locked for the final time, the culture is forced into a sudden, jarring pivot. It has to transition from living, breathing memory into recorded history.
But what does that pivot actually look like on the ground? I mean, It's not just putting a CD on a shelf or locking a door and walking away.
Oh, far from it. For 8 centuries, St Augustine's was an active participant in the city's daily rhythm.
People actually used it.
Exactly. It was where generation after generation gathered, mourned, celebrated. And, Moya Brennan's music carried an ancient linguistic tradition into the modern era as a living, evolving practice.
Yeah, keeping the language alive.
Right. So when you lose the physical gathering space and the living practitioner, the burden of preservation shifts entirely to the historians, the archivists, and the museums.
Which means it stops being something you just do and becomes something you have to actively study.
Precisely. It requires deliberate curation. You have to maintain the archives, digitize the records, fund the preservation of the physical building so it doesn't just crumble.
Which is not cheap.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Moving culture from living memory into the archives isn't just an emotional burden. It is an incredibly expensive logistical undertaking.
And that expense brings up a glaring contradiction in how the arts are functioning right now.
Oh, yeah.
Because preserving traditions and supporting the people who actually create this culture doesn't happen for free. Let's look at the Glasgow Festival from the Dispatch.
Right, the Glasgow event.
Yeah. This was supposed to be a major inaugural Irish music and culture festival taking place at Glasgow Green. But this week, organizers announced it is completely postponed until 2027.
Canceled before it even started.
Exactly. The reasons they cited were rising costs, logistical hurdles, global economic pressures, and what they specifically called geopolitical turmoil.
Yeah, it's a perfect storm of external economic pressures, crushing a grassroots initiative before it even gets off the ground.
It's brutal.
The margins for live events at that level are razor thin to begin with. Add in global inflation and it just collapses.
But then you turn the page in the Dispatch, and Minister Patrick O'Donovan is announcing over 1.6 million euros in funding.
A huge amount of money.
Right. And this money is going to support 192 international Irish arts projects to promote the culture globally.
Worldwide.
Yeah. But at the exact same time, the Dispatch reports on domestic artists who are supposed to be on a government pilot scheme for long-term income support.
Right. The basic income pilot.
Yes. The government announced this support publicly, but artists are actively reporting that they have been left in total financial limbo waiting for the funds.
They haven't seen a dime.
So what does this all mean for the everyday creator trying to survive right now? It feels like the government is building this shiny, expensive new ship strictly for export, sending 1.6 million across the globe while the local harbor is going bankrupt.
That tension between exporting a polished cultural image globally versus sustaining the messy, vulnerable grassroots scene domestically, that is the central friction of modern arts funding.
The shiny export versus the messy reality.
Exactly. From a governmental standpoint, funding 192 international projects yields a very clear, measurable diplomatic return.
Like good PR.
Yes. It projects brand Ireland onto the world stage. It attracts foreign investment, it builds tourism pipelines, and it solidifies soft power.
So it's basically a massive marketing budget.
Pretty much.
But why is it so much easier for a government to cut a 1.6 million euro check to international arts organizations than it is to pay the local musicians who are stuck in limbo on that pilot scheme?
It's frustrating.
It seems like a case of the PR department moving way faster than the payroll department.
Well, it comes down to the underlying mechanism of how institutional money moves.
Okay, how so?
When a government funds international projects, they are usually dealing with established organizations that have dedicated compliance teams, existing tax structures, clear deliverables.
They speak the same corporate language.
Exactly. It is a streamlined business-to-business transaction.
They know exactly where the money is going and how it will be tracked.
Right. But the domestic basic income pilot scheme, that deals with the granular day-to-day survival of human beings.
Who don't always have compliance teams.
Exactly. To distribute that money, you have to navigate severe bureaucratic hurdles. You have to implement means testing.
Yeah.
You have to figure out how to tax gig economy workers whose income fluctuates wildly from week to week. The administrative machinery breaks down because the system just isn't designed to support the irregular financial lives of artists.
So the paperwork fundamentally doesn't match the reality of the job.
And that is the paradox. The intention behind long-term income support is genuinely progressive, right?
It sounds great on paper.
It does. But if the administrative machinery fails the artist on the ground, the foundation rots. You cannot continuously export a culture if the people actually creating it at home can't afford to pay rent or rehearse.
Right. If the bands booked for Glasgow have to take second jobs because their pilot scheme money is tied up in red tape, the whole festival collapses.
Exactly.
Yet despite this massive economic and bureaucratic struggle, the Dispatch highlights another force that is completely unstoppable right now.
Consumer demand.
Yes, consumer demand. The sheer appetite for live music from ticket buyers is just roaring.
People are still buying tickets, and they are spending significant amounts of their disposable income to do so.
The milestones and live triumphs in this week's Dispatch are explosive. Let's list them out.
Let's do it.
First, Westlife.
Westlife.
They're celebrating their 25th anniversary tour. The demand was so immense that, according to MCD.RE, they had to add 5 brand new dates to their residency at the 3 Arena.
5 new arena dates. That's huge.
Huge. Then you have David Gray. Arte today announced he's doing a major Irish summer tour, including dates at the Cork Marquee on June 13th and 14th to celebrate his legacy.
Two very clear examples of legacy acts pulling massive crowds and dictating the market.
And it isn't isolated to pop music. The Bray International Jazz Festival is celebrating its 25th anniversary this year, too.
Another 25th anniversary.
Yep. You've got the Royal Irish Academy of Music Artists in concert and traditional acts like El Safdie, Armstrong and Brown playing at Arthur's in Dublin.
It's everywhere.
In the recording space, harpist Ailey Robertson has a new release called Echoes from Torloisk. We've got new music from Donegal's Kevin Laughlin, positive reviews for Padraig Cooney's new album, and Tori Amos doing a major gig at Dublin's Olympia.
Tori Amos, wow.
Oh, and Electric Picnic just added a massive 42 new acts to their 2026 lineup.
42.
Including the Mary Wallopers, Wolf Alice, and JD.
It is a dizzying amount of cultural consumption for a single week, especially considering the economic constraints we just discussed.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me.
You're listening to My Irish Music and Culture News, brought to you by My Irish Radio, streaming the best in Irish and Celtic music all day, every day. From classic jigs and reels to the latest Irish rock and pub favorites, we celebrate the sound of Ireland worldwide. Want to be more than a listener? Be a host. Share your love for the Irish music by hosting your own show on My Irish Radio. It's easy to get started. Just send us an email, myirishradio@gmail.com. Don't forget, you can listen 24/7 at myirishradio.com. Make My Irish Radio your Irish radio.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me. When you look at the absolute biggest ticket movers here, Westlife's 25th anniversary, Bray Jazz's 25th anniversary, David Gray returning to the Cork Marquee, there is a very heavy, undeniable lean on nostalgia.
Definitely.
It reminds me of seeking out comfort food.
Yeah.
You know, you want the mac and cheese, not the experimental fusion dish.
Right, you want what you know.
Exactly. Are consumers clinging to these legacy acts because the economic and geopolitical turmoil we talked about earlier makes taking a chance on something new feel too financially risky?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the psychology behind ticket purchasing right now is heavily defensive.
Defensive.
Yeah. During times of global economic stress, the exact pressures that postponed the Glasgow Festival, right?
Yeah, inflation, uncertainty.
Exactly. During those times, legacy acts serve as cultural anchors. When a consumer's disposable income is squeezed by inflation or uncertainty, spending €100 on a concert ticket becomes a highly calculated risk.
Right. You can't afford to go to a bad show.
That is the crux of it. Westlife or David Gray provides a guaranteed emotional return on investment.
Because you already know you love it.
Exactly. You know the words, you know the atmosphere, and crucially, the music transports you back to a time before your current anxieties existed.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
It is an insulated, predictable experience. The massive demand at the Three Arena isn't just an appetite for pop music. It is a collective desire for certainty in an uncertain world.
Hold on. If consumers are entirely risk-averse, how do you explain the Electric Picnic announcement? Because the Dispatch says they just added 42 new acts, including much newer voices like the Mary Wallopers, Wolf Alice, and JD. How does a massive festival relying on new and diverse acts fit into a theory of pure nostalgia?
Because a multi-day festival operates on a completely different economic principle.
Okay, how so?
It's the buffet model.
The buffet model. I like that.
Yeah. When you buy a ticket to a single artist's arena show, all your risk is placed on that one performance. But a festival hedges the consumer's risk by providing volume.
Because there's so much to see.
Right. You might go primarily for the established headliner, your cultural anchor, but the sheer variety allows you to safely sample newer acts like the Mary Wallopers.
And if they aren't your favorite, you didn't waste your money because you can just walk to another stage.
Exactly.
So the festival format is essentially a risk management tool for the soul.
That's a great phrase.
You get your guaranteed feeling from the headliner, but you also get a safe environment to experience the unknown.
Yes.
And speaking of the unknown, this search for anchors isn't just happening at the box office. We're literally digging them out of the dirt.
Yeah, the archaeology section of the Dispatch is incredible.
It is. The archaeological news completely changes how we understand the cultural borders we are so desperately trying to protect and fund today.
The heritage discoveries detailed this week fundamentally challenge the accepted geographical history of the island.
Let's start with the excavation in Dublin. Archaeologists there uncovered the first ever intact Roman pot found in Ireland.
An intact Roman pot.
Intact. Then over in Sligo, work at the Green Fort yielded over 1,000 artifacts.
1,000.
And it's not just unearthing objects, it's unearthing people. The dispatch details a deeply tragic historical discovery in Pennsylvania, where a mass grave has been found.
Yeah, that was a heavy read.
It is believed to hold the remains of over 100 Irish railroad workers.
Just heartbreaking.
So you have this literal unearthing of the diaspora's grit. Meanwhile, jumping back to the modern media landscape, there's a sequel to the movie Practical Magic in the works, featuring elements of the Irish film scene.
Right.
And an ongoing court case regarding the Lord the Dance show and Michael Flatley's absence.
Look at the sheer chronological and geographical spread of those items.
It's massive.
Rome to Dublin, Sligo to Pennsylvania, and Hollywood to the Irish film scene.
I want to focus on that Roman pot in Dublin for a second.
Okay.
Finding that is like finding a vintage French metro ticket in the pocket of someone who supposedly never left New York.
That's a good analogy.
It forces you to ask, who did they meet and what were they trading? But let me challenge this. Does one single Roman pot really shatter the illusion of isolation?
What do you mean?
Couldn't just be a single rogue merchant whose boat blew off course? How does digging up a Roman pot in Dublin or a mass grave of Irish workers in Pennsylvania change the way we view Ireland's place in the world today?
This raises an important question about how we interpret historical evidence.
Right.
If it were just one pot in a vacuum, perhaps you could argue it was a rogue merchant. But archaeology relies on density and context.
Context is key.
Exactly. When you pair that pot in Dublin with the massive unearthing happening simultaneously, like those 1,000 artifacts pulled from Sligo's Green Fort, you stop seeing anomalies and start seeing systemic networks.
So it wasn't an accident?
No. A rogue merchant doesn't leave a footprint of that density. We are seeing physical evidence of sustained dialogue and trade with the European continent.
Wow.
It shatters the romanticized, melancholic view of Ireland as an isolated island, completely disconnected from the grand march of history.
So it was a functioning node in a network, not just a blank spot on a map.
Yes. And when you look at the mass grave in Pennsylvania, you see the much darker, brutal side of that global connection.
The cost of it.
Right. The 19th century Irish footprint wasn't about soft power or cultural exchange. It was literal physical labor building the infrastructure of the New World.
Building the railroads.
It was blood and bone in the soil of America. When you synthesize these discoveries, the ancient Roman trade and the grit of the historical diaspora, you realize that Ireland has always been a highly permeable global entity.
Which explains exactly why the modern exports you mentioned make so much sense.
Precisely. When modern Hollywood incorporates the Irish film scene into a Practical Magic sequel, or when Lord of the Dance dominates international stages to the point of generating high-stakes legal battles, it is not some new, modern export strategy.
It's not a new phenomenon.
No. It is simply the current iteration of a global footprint that dates back to ancient trade networks and 19th century migrations. The medium has simply changed from Roman pottery and railroad tracks to cinema and stage production.
But the reach is the same.
The global reach is a constant.
To summarize this for you, the listener, we started today by looking at what seemed like a totally random assortment of weekly news items.
Yeah, a lot of different threads.
But when you examine the mechanisms behind them, you see a massive ancient tapestry being actively woven. Every time you stream Moya Brennan's music, or consider the closure of a historic building like St Augustine's, you are participating in the expensive, necessary transition from living memory to archive.
Exactly.
Every time you buy a ticket to a Westlife anniversary tour, you are seeking a psychological anchor in a turbulent economy.
Seeking that comfort food.
Right. And whether the government is sending 1.6 million euros across the globe, or we are mourning 100 laborers in a Pennsylvania grave, it is all proof of a culture that refuses to be contained by its own borders. Understanding how these threads connect makes you a much more informed participant in the world around you.
You see the bigger picture.
Yeah, you aren't just reading the news, you're watching the gears of history turn in real time.
That synthesis captures the stakes perfectly. And before we finish, I want to leave you with one final lingering thought to ponder on your own.
Let's hear it.
Consider those incredible archaeological finds we just discussed. The density of the 1,000 artifacts at Sligo's Green Fort, or the narrative disruption of that perfectly intact Roman pot.
Right.
Now, fast forward 800 years into the future. That is the exact same lifespan as the Cork church that just closed its doors.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Imagine archaeologists digging up the physical artifacts from this specific week in April 2026.
What would they find?
Perhaps they find a digital flyer for the postponed Glasgow Festival. Maybe they unearth an electric picnic wristband. Or they find the tangled bureaucratic paperwork from a local artist desperately waiting for their pilot scheme income support.
Yeah.
What will those specific artifacts tell them about what we valued most? And more importantly, what will it tell them about who we chose to protect and who we left behind?
That is going to stay with me for a long time. It fundamentally changes how you look at the receipt in your pocket or the ticket stub on your desk.
It really does.
Keep questioning the things around you, keep connecting the dots, and we will see you next time.
That's it for this episode of My Irish Radio, Music and Culture News. Thanks for joining us. And remember, you can hear the best in Irish and Celtic music 24 hours a day at myirishradio.com. If you ever dreamed of sharing your favorite tunes and stories, now's your chance. Become one of the hosts. Host your own show right here on My Irish Radio. Just send us an email. It's easy as that. myirishradio@gmail.com. Until next time, it's Jamie Flanagan. Keep the music playing and keep Ireland in your heart.